So, hello and welcome. My name's Steve Nobel, and today I'm speaking with Carol Nayach on Transcending the Matrix of Illusion. Now, Carol has been channeling Arcturians for the past 3 years and leads a group in central London working with the Arcturians where she offers guided meditations and transmissions every Wednesday evening, and once a month she holds a planetary meditation group again in central London. There will be a link going out on her meetup group with this podcast. So, hi Carol.
Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning.
Lovely to be talking with you again.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful day here in London. So bright and beautiful. I'm sitting here looking out over the garden, and it's really green and bright. So, a good day for transcending illusions.
Absolutely. It lifts our spirits, doesn't it?
It does. Well, let me ask you, when we say the matrix of illusion, let me just ask you, what is that matrix?
Well, that's what we're going to discover, isn't it? Because how many of us actually really think about our life, about this world, or any of the really serious questions. And so we never really look into the matrix, the hologram, the illusion of this so-called reality that we live in. So it's only when higher awareness starts to come into our lives that we begin to see some of our illusions.
These illusions are generated by our minds?
Well, we're very programmed, aren't we? And even the most so-called intelligent people find it very difficult to think out of their own box. The limitations of the third dimensional mind, where we've been programmed, conditioned, and so on. We develop a whole set of beliefs, of thought forms, of ways of thinking, and we don't seem to have much of an impetus to look at things more deeply or to move beyond that. And most of it is based on the past rather than the present as well.
Well, this is almost like our own prison in a way, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And we all seem to have a great resistance to moving beyond it, to seeing anything outside of it. And of course, most of our beliefs, most of our thought forms, generating most of our emotions, are mainly fairly negative. Higher thoughts, higher perspectives, higher realities, which we're all capable of bringing in if we only wished to, would actually relieve so much of our pain and suffering. But we have great resistance to letting go of what we think.
Yes.
And it's not actually our own thoughts most often.
Yes, we do seem to have also, there's a level of control or manipulation through media or corporates or banking systems. What about that kind of level of influencing our own private illusions? Do you think we're highly manipulated?
Oh, I think the suggestibility is enormous. And of course, with all these things that are bombarded at us, which we take in often on a subconscious level, and the whole collective thought field, the whole collective consciousness is full of huge amounts of negative programming. But of course, for those of us that are working for the light, working to raise our frequency and come into a truer reality, it's important to remember that higher thoughts are tremendously more powerful than lower thoughts, than negative thoughts, thoughts of a lower vibration. And of course, as we, as light workers, as starseeds, think higher thoughts, all those higher thoughts are going out into the collective unconscious and having a huge influence over time on humanity.
in terms of like emotional energy, which kind of is but backs up our thoughts, I guess there's a scale of energy, isn't there, from the lower to the higher. We could say rage or guilt or shame could vibrate quite low on the scale, whereas love, joy, unity would go quite high. Do you accept that? Is that how you feel that energy works?
Oh, absolutely. And so much of our emotion is generated by our thoughts, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just having the awareness of what we're actually thinking, what we're actually saying to ourselves throughout the day. For most people, the mind never stops chattering. It's the ego personality or the lower self which uses the mind in that way. And when we can bring in self-awareness and observe what we're actually saying to ourselves, we can then start to look at what we're saying and think, is it truth? Most of our thoughts tend to be about unworthiness, not being good enough, not being unloved, and so on. So when we connect more to our true self, and our higher self is able to come down and merge with us, we then, of course, have a very different experience of who we are. We then experience ourselves as a divine being of light. And within our own divine self, of course, there's no feelings at all of being unworthy of love, of not being good enough, of having to compare ourselves with others, etc. And much of the resentment and anger and so on that we have towards life, towards situations, etc., most of it actually comes from within and starts with fear about ourselves, about who we are, because we're so afraid of not being enough. We feel so insecure about not being accepted, etc. And it's many of this subconscious stuff that's going on within us that determines our reactions to what's happening outside of us.
Yeah.
So as we heal ourselves more within, then our perception of reality outside of us changes.
Gorgeous.
And so instead of seeing all the hate and all the cruelty and all the violence and suffering, we start to see the beauty around us.
Carol, do you think that the core of all of this illusion is this separative consciousness, this idea that we're separate from creation, that we're all these little individuals who've got to kind of compete and, jostle with each other? We are not connected. Most religions say that we're kind of brothers and sisters in light, don't we? But we seem to be quite disconnected from that concept, and we're in a more of a struggle with each other.
Well, that's right, isn't it? Because as we descended into greater and greater density, which of course we should not judge ourselves for, because it was all part of, the soul plan that we would experience that. We become more and more disconnected from the higher dimensions and our connections to the higher dimensions of self. And over time, eons, I would think, I presume, we've forgotten that we are spirit, that we are created in love, that we are part of and one with the Creator. And when we come into that kind of separation, where we're living in our lower chakras, base chakra based on survival and so on, it all becomes very fearful. Being disconnected from the higher parts of self creates a huge amount of fear. And that separation, which in itself is the biggest illusion, isn't it? Because we're never truly separated. Separation is suffering.
Yeah.
And separation creates so much fear within us. So as we move out of separation and into our connectedness to the all, we can become one with Gaia, one with the galaxy, one with the universe. And our consciousness can expand into the higher realms, expand out of its usual limitation. And then when we feel our own connection through the high heart to a Creator Source, we feel comforted, nurtured, loved. We know that we're protected because we're in our light, and there's no need for fear there. And we experience that inner peace which we all long for. We live in that frequency of bliss, and it's a very beautiful place to be. But of course, one of the great challenges is that we can move into that place through our spiritual work, in our meditations and so on. But can we merge that higher aspect of self, that higher dimension of being, into the third dimension? And of course, that's the huge challenge which we are all working to achieve at the moment. And I think and feel at the moment, with the solstice coming up on Wednesday, which is a wonderful time for us to have our meditation, of course. You know, Wednesday's meditations will be on the 21st. I'm sure that that wave of Christ consciousness energy that's coming into us through Sananda and so on, coming through the sun, is going to be upgraded. And I think there'll be a lot more potential for those starseeds, light workers that are ready to actually come into Christ consciousness. And of course, there's then a whole new reality, isn't there, when we have that, you know, that love that Jesus has, if one experiences it. It is immense unconditional love, which is almost unimaginable to us in our third dimensional selves, with absolute total acceptance of everything, of all that is. And of course, one of the ways that greatly helps us to move out of illusion is when we can accept all that is. Because then we have this higher awareness, this detachment, the transcendental self that simply looks on it simply as experience and not as the self, you see. And it's through this Christ consciousness energy of unconditional love, compassion and acceptance that all the lower vibrational hurts, pains, sufferings and fears simply dissolve away in the transmutation powers of unconditional love.
So what happens when this matrix dissolves at a personal level? We're still in the 3D world with all its stuff that's going on, but we're not so affected by it. Is that what Jesus said, be in the world but not of it?
Exactly, that's right. And that's how we become masters of ourselves, of course. When we can master our own energy field, hold our light, hold our energy, irrespective of what's happening around us. And when we know who we are, when we live in our true self, then nothing outside of us affects us. We have that kind of state of being where we know who we are to such a degree that whether someone criticizes us or praises us, there's no reaction.
I guess also with this comes a great compassion for people still suffering in 3D, and there is a lot of suffering. I mean, in London we've had the fire in West London. I actually drove past it the other day. It's quite something. I personally feel a great empathy or great compassion for those souls going across, and I did do a little group meditation helping them go across. So it doesn't mean that we lack compassion, does it, because we start dissolving that old matrix of illusion?
Well, I think that's one thing, Steve, that a lot of people seem to find very difficult to understand, because most people confuse it with sympathy. when we have sympathy, which is a normal human emotion at this level, we're actually engaging with the situation at the level of the situation, at that vibration, which is only adding energy to it.
Yes.
When you come up into the level of detachment, equanimity, transcendence, neutrality, you don't engage with it. You don't identify with it. And from that level of neutrality, then compassion and unconditional love can just pour from you. And that is able to help.
That's a great point, isn't it? That we're not turning our backs on the world. We are just engaging in a very different way.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course that's what we're doing, isn't it? Bringing in the higher light to change the world. And we don't change the world by having anger about what's happening, by being sad about all the suffering. These are all the lower emotions which only feed those lower vibrations. We raise our emotional state into higher feeling, and we feel from our higher self. We think from our higher mind, which is a totally different level of being. And it is this higher level of thinking, of feeling, which transforms the lower. And of course this is how we free ourselves from the power of illusion, not by identifying with it, but by rising above it.
And the end game, I suppose, is that the global 3D matrix is going to dissolve into something else. Could you say something about this more global picture?
Well, I can only say, as I see it, that the Christ consciousness energy and all the higher frequencies that are bombarding the planet at the moment and being received by Gaia are going to have an influence on everyone, obviously. I remember reading something once that came, I believe, from Archangel Michael, and he said, "We will blow a cosmic wind and nothing will be able to stand against it." So as those of us that are working in the light bring more and more light into this world, as we bring more higher thought and higher feeling into this world, we hope that we will be able to bring more and more souls into the light for the ascension. But the Arcturians often remind us that the polarities are getting stronger. Because as more light comes into the world and more people come into higher frequencies, so the lower so there's a bigger gap between the light and the dark, so to speak.
Well, Carol, now I know you're going to do a meditation around this subject of transcending the matrix of illusion, so I'll leave it to you to say a few words and then off you go. And thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you, Steve. Wonderful. Well, as Steve mentioned, I do work a lot with the Arcturians, particularly an Arcturian group named Juniano and Helioa, who works very much with holographic light, holographic energy, and the holographic universe. So they will be with us during our meditation, among many other beings of light, and we will be activating the Arcturian crystal temple energies to be with us. So I think we will begin with just a few minutes or so, just to bring ourselves into a more peaceful, more connected, meditative state before we move into our work. So begin to breathe. There is of course no need to change your breath, simply to be aware that you breathe. For as you inhale, as you exhale, with self-awareness, so you receive into your being, into your cells. the light of spirit. So as we relax down into our bodies, breathe in a very relaxed way. We move away from our third dimensional mind, letting go of the intellect and coming into our being. And we begin to move into the inner planes as we move inwards into our being, into our core, and into our high heart. And we relax down into the heart, and we simply breathe. And we know that from this inner place, there's no effort to make, nothing to do, simply to be, and simply to open to receive. And we can open our crown, invite our higher self, the fifth dimensional aspect of ourself, to bring down its light and to move closer to us. As the light of our presence begins to descend, entering through our crown, through our core, into our, and we breathe in the light of self, and we begin to fill with light, the light of our divinity, the light of who I am. And my higher self begins to merge with me as my aura fills with light, as my heart it fills with light and expands. So from this place of being more connected, the Arcturians are able to bring their light, their energy. So become aware of a corridor of Arcturian blue light around you, and see, sense, visualize, or know that you are sitting in the Arcturian crystal temple. Beautiful geometries of light, beautiful structures of light, and beautiful colours. And as you rest in this place, in this temple, with your Arcturian guides, you allow the Arcturian frequency to come into your being. And you find it is very soothing, very comforting, and very healing. So while you are here in the Arcturian crystal temple, you will be receiving through your third eye, through your crown, and into your heart, the Arcturian light transmissions, which contain information, knowledge, activations, and healing, all that you require at this time. Much of it will be downloaded into your etheric body, which will come into your physical being as and when you are ready to receive it. Become aware of your third eye, of your crown, of your high heart, and simply be open to receive, for there is nothing you are required to do here, simply to be and to receive. As the ego has stepped aside, and you simply allow, coming into the divine flow of the eternal spirit. All is done for you here. There is nothing for you to do. So, we would like to suggest to you that as part of your daily practice, you use the conscious breath, which simply means that you are aware of your breathing as you breathe in and as you breathe out. You may even wish to notice that point of stillness between the in-breath and the out-breath. This will bring you into the sensation of your body. And as you are more in your body, so the mind begins to slow down. You bring your I am presence. Your I am presence actually comes all the way from source, moving down through your multi-dimensional self, entering into your being. I am. I am consciousness. I am light. Light is love. And as you come into your I am presence, so the ego subsides, and you find yourself in the now, the eternal now, the infinite presence of your true self. And it is through this practice that you are led out of illusion into the greater reality. It is your I am consciousness that changes your reality. For once your perception of reality changes within, then the way you see the world also changes. So what are some of the things that block us from this higher reality, where we live in love, in bliss, in peace, where we experience the unconditional love, acceptance, and forgiveness of all that is, residing in the Christ consciousness energy, which our fifth dimensional self already exists in. Of course, it is having forgotten our connection to spirit, that we are multi-dimensional beings, as we moved into greater separation. So we found ourselves living in survival mode, motivated by fear, as we allowed to accumulate within all our past experiences, believe in our experiences to be who we are, rather than simply an experience which my consciousness was witnessing. The accumulation of much pain and suffering has been held within through many lifetimes. The emotional body contains a lot of emotions of pain, suffering and resentment, which prevent the entry of the light, and the mental body has been created through illusory thoughts, cutting us off from our higher mind. Under the influence of the personality and the ego, we feel unworthy, unfulfilled from past, and unloved. Through the mass consciousness, we are bombarded with distorted thought forms, and we hold all this within our mental body. It programs our thinking, it determines what we believe, and we rarely wish to step outside the narrow thoughts and beliefs to observe them from a higher place and to really examine the truth of what we think about life, but particularly what we think about ourselves. For change always begins within, and when we are able to live within our true self, our perception of reality changes completely. But most of us are resistant to change. We are frozen in pain and suffering, and we're unwilling to open to new ideas, new thoughts, new ways of perceiving, which would relieve our pain and suffering, which would move us out of limitation and allow us to embody, embrace, encompass the higher light which is being sent to us at the moment, which would raise us, expand our consciousness, and open us up to all the wonders of life in the higher realms. But there is much that is being done for us at the moment, if only we are open to receive. It is possible to become aware of your higher mind at this time. It is possible to bring your focus into your high heart and to connect your higher mind to your high heart. So bear in mind that through this conversation, the beautiful beings of Arcturus and your guides and teachers have been communicating with you, communicating to your subconscious, where much of your rigid beliefs exist, communicating with your fifth dimensional self, which will be able to influence your third dimensional mind. So much is being received. But let us now work with Juliana and Tinioa to raise our frequency and expand our consciousness. So as you once again become more familiar with their presence, with their light and their energy, simply allow yourselves to have your frequency raised into a higher vibration. There's nothing for you to do, simply to let go, open to receive, as they bring to you a shimmering energy. It begins below your feet and shimmers gently up through your aura, clearing your aura as the energy moves upwards and very gently increasing your vibration. For all is energy, all is vibration. As your frequency changes, so your perception of reality changes. so your experience of who you are changes. As you receive into your being, into your aura, the shimmering energy of light, as you feel your cells rising into a higher frequency, so you feel lighter and freer. From the top of your brain, the top of your head, become aware. Move your focus there and become aware of the space just above your head. With the help of Giuliano and the Arcturian, your fifth dimensional mind is now connecting to your third dimensional brain. Affirm to yourselves, I am. And bring a line of light with the help of Giuliano from your higher mind down to your high heart, and feel the love that you are. I am a divine being of light. And I openly receive into my being the light of Christ. As the Christ consciousness frequency surrounds you and embodies you, moving through your high heart and opening your heart space to the degree to which you are able to let go. As you let go of limiting beliefs, restricted thought forms, and all about you that you are unable to love, you embrace your divine self, your Christ itself, and you experience unconditional love, compassion, and acceptance for all those parts, all those aspects of your lower self which up to this time you have been unable to love. You have the courage to turn away from nothing within you and to send love to all those parts of you which have been wounded, which have been hurt, and which have not experienced love, for the divine love of Christ is now descending on all the hurts and wounds, that all may be healed and forgotten, that the past no longer needs to influence the present, and you can move in to the eternal now. So when you return from the crystal temple into your third dimensional self, bring to life, to yourself, to the inner and outer world, the higher frequencies of light and love. Your world within will transform and transmute, and you will transform the world around you. Become aware of your thoughts and all negative thought patterns about yourselves, all negative beliefs about yourselves as they appear. Simply stop them and replace them with higher thoughts of love, of freedom, of compassion, of your own divinity, and of this great transformation which has taken place on Gaia. So feel yourselves within your bodies. Feel your breath. Feel your sensation. Feel your feet on the ground, and feel your connection to the earth as you sink down into the earth, feeling her life, her soil. And send down through your feet and your lower chakras a line of light to the crystalline core of Gaia, where you connect to her heart, her soul, her spirit, and you draw her up into your aura, into your being, into your room, and be one with her and one with yourself. And when you feel ready, open your eyes